explains.
Are there any volunteers in the house tonight? All right, now that's what I'm talking about.
A rallying of the troops as more than 7,000 volunteers arm themselves with vests, clipboards, and flashlights, then head out into the streets to make sure LA's homeless residents get counted.
The fact that our neighbors who are experiencing homelessness on our streets matter, they matter to us, and the information that you're gathering matters to us. There's no other way to do this.
7 people? 7 or more, yeah.
This is the yearly Greater Los Angeles Homeless Count, 3 nights in which the volunteers scour alleys, abandoned lots, bushes, strip malls, parks, and yes, even sidewalks in business districts. Any place where a homeless person might put up a tent or lay down a sleeping bag, or even park a vehicle in which to curl up for the night.
I expect to be reminded of all the things I'm really lucky to have: a roof over my head and a place to go and people that are looking out for me and safety nets that these people don't have.
I just want to be part of solving the problem.
Organizers want to know how many and what kind of people call the streets home so they can better target homeless services and funding. A simple head count is all that's needed, but volunteers will also fill out more detailed surveys on homeless residents willing to talk. Something new on these streets, according to the census takers. In the last couple of years, the number of homeless women has increased by 55%.
I understand and I have seen how harsh it is out there, and I definitely hope that I can get an accurate count so we can come back and count those numbers and get some more money from federal and county.
By the time the 3 nights are over, volunteers will have covered every corner of the greater LA area and hopefully helped all its homeless residents stand up and be counted. I'm Anna Marcos for LA This Week.
The Greater Los Angeles Homeless Count is put on by the Los Angeles Homeless Services Authority with the help of community groups and city leaders. Homelessness has reached into every nook and cranny of our public open spaces, including parks, where many people who are homeless find refuge. But now Recreation and Parks officials are working to stem the tide, and it all starts with some basic human outreach. Anna Marcos has the details.
More and more homeless people are setting up camp in city parks, and that means new challenges for park workers and rangers. For those without a roof, the parks are often a safe haven from the daily struggle of life on the streets.
I have schizophrenia, and that is what took me into homelessness. I found this old abandoned park, but this place was the only place that I felt safe.
The National Recreation and Park Association has put on the Innovation Lab with LA's Department of Recreation and Parks to help park workers across the country think outside the box in hammering out solutions.
But the reality is that park directors have a balance between opening their parks up to homeless and then also welcoming families. And sometimes that is where there's some friction.
It is law that you cannot have a tent in a city park. You cannot camp in a city park.
Several formerly homeless people who once lived in parks gave valuable insights here today. For example, one woman lived in a park for 25 years and no one ever contacted her or talked to her until someone finally did, got her into housing, and changed her life.
I was one of those people that were in the vegetate state.
5 years later, Carrie Bales has become an advocate for the homeless, and she recently volunteered in her first homeless census count.
The homeless count, which I was so grateful to be part of the other night, and be in the same area that I was homeless. It was 5 years later, people that are, that some people can't reach. I can.
These formerly homeless advocates had some advice for park directors. For example, stop and talk to homeless people you see and be ready with help and services.
Have a place for them to get the resources they need.
Together we can. We can end this. We can do this.
The hope is that insights shared here just might make the difference in getting more homeless people humanely off the streets. I'm Anna Marcos for LA This Week.
Now, you'll soon be able to give your input on the issue by voting for or against Measure H in the city's March elections. The measure would impose a 1/4-cent sales tax on LA residents to pay for mental health and other services for people who are homeless. Turning now to another hot-button topic, immigration. President Trump's plan for mass deportations won't receive help from the city of Los Angeles. But LA's defiance could end up costing money under Trump's executive order. Gil Reyes has more.
If federal agents want to round up LA's undocumented immigrants, they'll have to do it without assistance from the Los Angeles Police Department.
The LAPD is not responsible for the enforcement of federal immigration laws.
At the city's first immigration committee meeting, it's all about Donald Trump and the city's refusal to lend resources like LAPD to the president's deportation agenda. City leaders mention Special Order 40, a local mandate created in 1979 that prohibits LAPD officers from questioning or detaining people solely for the purpose of determining their immigration status.
This has proven to reduce crime because people are not fearful of approaching our officers, whether they're victims or witnesses. We also want to move forward to see what else we can do should the federal government attempt to take away our federal funding because of our support for individuals.
The city of Los Angeles receives an estimated $500 million a year from the federal government to fund such things as port security, help for seniors and veterans, also anti-gang programs. President Trump's executive order would cut such funding for so-called sanctuary cities like Los Angeles, who refuse to cooperate with his immigration raids. Whether or not the president has the legal authority to do this is still unclear. However, LA City leaders have this message.
Los Angeles is and will continue to be a place of refuge for people from all walks of life, regardless of one's background, income, sexual orientation, religious affiliation, or immigration status. I immigrated from South Korea when I was 6 years old. I am both the product and beneficiary of the diversity that we celebrate here in Los Angeles.
Leaders in both houses of the state legislature feel the same way. At Los Angeles City Hall, I'm Gil Reyes for LA This Week.
Other big cities like San Francisco, New York, and Chicago are taking similar stands against the president at the risk of losing federal dollars. While heading over to the North Valley, where a new study says that a little street improvement can go a long way in stopping prostitution. Anna Marcos has more.
Can trimming trees and bushes really take a bite out of crime and prostitution? City leaders and residents in the North Valley are counting on it. The results of their new study tell them to start chopping.
I have a business on Lankershim, and when I had a customer walk in my door and say, I almost didn't come in because of all the prostitutes out there. Hookers, actually. My little 4-year-old said to me, Mommy, what's a hooker? You don't want your child to grow up knowing those words.
This corner of the valley near Sepulveda and Valerio Street has long been a hotbed of prostitution and sex trafficking.
Since I grew up here my entire life, and we've always known that there has been prostitution activity on this track. The difference is, I will tell you, is over the last couple of years, the age of the women who they traffic on this corridor has gotten younger and younger and younger.
Last year, the LAPD created its Valley Bureau Human Trafficking Task Force, which targets the pimps, johns, and prostitutes who work the area.
How many pimps have we arrested? 22 pimps over this year alone.
City leaders have also teamed up with researchers at Cal State Northridge and released the results of the new study. It shows this area, with its dark, unlit streets and parking lots and overgrown bushes, does much to encourage shady dealings.
What we did, we end up following the prostitutes and johns and finding out exactly where they went. There are businesses, there are schools, churches that at nighttime they are not utilized. Their parking lots are dark, left empty, they are not gated. And many johns and prostitutes, they use those facilities.
Researchers recommend tree trimming along with added lighting in 40 areas. Other suggestions: new fencing, surveillance cameras, street dividers, and no stopping and no turning signs to give police more reason to stop the violators. But city leaders say they can't do it alone.
I'd ask every apartment manager, owner, install cameras. Look at the own lighting on your buildings. Look at motion detectors. Look at having your shrubs trimmed back so people can't hide out in the shadows.
Councilmember Nuri Martinez has come up with $780,000 for the project, a payout city leaders hope pays off big time in reducing the sex trafficking and prostitution that go on in the dark. I'm Anna Marcos for LA This Week.
To report sex trafficking and prostitution, visit 647-TIPS at LAPD online. While Metro is using cutting-edge technology to drill through the earth, Rasha Goel has more on this giant machine that is as heavy as 13 Endeavour shuttles.
Yana, I'm here in what they refer to as the pit at First and Central in downtown Los Angeles. Now, what you see behind me is the tunnel boring machine. It is 1,000 tons, 400 feet long. And why this machine is important is it's part of the Regional Connector Transit Project. And what it's going to do is dig a tunnel all the way to 2nd and Hope from here. Now, this is part of the bigger project, which is really aimed at connecting the Expo, Gold, and Blue lines here in downtown Los Angeles.
This tunnel boring machine will bore through the earth at an average of about 65 feet per day.
The machine is like a giant drill that will dig twin 1.1-mile underground light rail tunnels, which will connect 3 new stations from Little Tokyo to the financial district.
One here at First and Central. The second station is on 2nd Street at Broadway, between Broadway and Spring. The third station is at Bunker Hill, and then it will join 7th and Metro Station.
Through this Metro Regional Connector Transit Project, passengers will be able to travel from Long Beach to Azusa and East LA to Santa Monica.
It'll add around 90,000 passengers per day, and will provide a lot more convenient ride for transit passengers.
This particular project will really connect the whole rail system here in LA County.
The launch of this machine marks a milestone for the project as the first tunnel is constructed. In downtown Los Angeles, I'm Rasha Goel for LA This Week.
The official line is expected to open in 2021. Well, turning now to Hollywood Awards season. And during this time, we remember the first Mexican-born actor to win an Oscar. Gil Reyes shows us the recently restored Pope of Broadway mural, honoring the late, great Anthony Quinn.
Many people say it's Anthony Quinn's greatest film, and that's saying a lot. 1964's Zorba the Greek captivated movie audiences and even inspired artist Eloy Torres to paint the 70-foot-tall Zorba mural in downtown Los Angeles. That was in 1985. More recently, what's known as the Pope of Broadway mural received a much-needed makeover.
I'm happy with it. I pumped up the colors a little bit because in anticipation of that it's going to fade, because it's a south-facing wall, so it gets a lot of sun.
Here's how it looked before the spruce-up. Here's how it looks today. Torres worked with Quinn's family, a restoration expert, and Councilman Jose Huizar to restore its original look. The entire process took about 8 years.
This artwork is not only a tribute to the two-time Academy Award-winning actor, but also, if you look closely, his arms are outstretched. The artist intended this to be a sort of welcoming gesture for all people of Los Angeles. By the way, Anthony Quinn had also performed nearby at the $1 Million Theater, which is also here in downtown LA.
For him to make it the way he did at the time he did, where people were not as accepting of Latinos in Hollywood, it's a great thing to honor such a great man, honor such a great mural.
Oscar-nominated actor Edward James Olmos is also a big fan of Anthony Quinn's and the mural.
Art really breathes life into humanity, and we need it, and this is going to be very inspirational. When people go by, they're going to just be very happy. And they won't even know why. They'll just look at it and go, wow, look at how beautiful that is.
In downtown Los Angeles, I'm Gil Reyes for LA This Week.
And you can see the Pope of Broadway mural live and in person at 3rd and Broadway in downtown. An African-American legend was among those recognized at the city's African-American Heritage Month kickoff. Rasha Goel was there.
At 82, he is vivacious as ever. Legendary music artist Johnny Mathis was among the honorees who received Hall of Fame awards at the city's kickoff for African American Heritage Month.
It's a great honor. Half of the city has been here, I think. I'm just thrilled. Yeah, it's very exciting.
Mathis received a Lifetime Achievement Award for his contribution to music. He is known for his smooth ballads and vocals and has sold over 350 million records worldwide. Another award winner was Michelle King, who received the Hall of Fame Award in Education. King is the first African-American superintendent of the LA Unified School District, which is the second largest in the nation.
LA Unified is 80% youth in poverty, 90% youth of color. And my message to them is, students, it's time to go to work. It's time to go to work and to get your education, because it's that will determine and secure your future.
Honoree Matthew Johnson, president of the Los Angeles Police Department Commission, received the Hall of Fame Award in Government. And Hall of Fame Award in Law was given to Andre Barot, U.S. District Judge for the Central District of California. He was the first African-American U.S. Attorney for the Central District.
But it is also a city of dreams that allowed me, as a young son of Haitian immigrants, to move out here from New Jersey at the age of 20, not knowing a single soul in this entire state, to go out to law school to pursue a dream of being a lawyer.
A reception followed at City Hall South Lawn. As it does every year to celebrate African American Heritage Month, the U.S. Postal Service releases a stamp highlighting someone from the African American community. This year's honor went to Dorothy Height, a prominent civil rights activist for women's rights.
She paved the way for many people.
African American Heritage Month in LA has been a tradition since 1949. In Los Angeles, I'm Rasha Goel for LA This Week.
For more information on activities happening throughout the month, you can log on to culturela.org. Well, more than 60,000 Angelenos flocked to downtown's Broadway district for a huge night out that mixed business and pleasure. And a big bash was all for free. Ana Marcos was there.
It was standing room only at this neighborhood party. The Night on Broadway event opened its doors up the entire length of Broadway downtown, and everyone was invited.
And we're going to do fun stuff. We're going to the Ferris wheel.
Exotic creatures were on show. This one tried to spread its wings in flight, but, well, it never quite got off the ground.
Have a good time and be crazy, drink, eat, bring me tacos and pizza.
And look at this, a combo chess and boxing match. Councilmember Jose Huizar refereed the match like a pro, sort of.
4, 3, 2, 1.
The guys played chess and boxed, then played chess and boxed again, and then it got dark, and still they boxed and played chess. All the fun and frolic had a serious reason behind it. The Night on Broadway party is part of Huizar's Bringing Back Broadway, a 10-year revitalization plan. This is year number 3 for the party, but year number 9 for the revitalization plan.
And so what we wanted to do is to get a new streetscape plan. We have a new sign ordinance that's getting back the neon and the blade signs of the 20s and 30s. We're also bringing back the streetcar. So we're doing a lot of things to revitalize the street. And part of what we're doing with Night on Broadway is to showcase it. And we also have a lot more businesses coming in. And most of these theaters are back to life.
It's beautiful. They shut down Broadway. It's fantastic to be able to walk and go into all these old theaters. It's fantastic.
10 different stages, 6 historic theaters behind me, and in between every kind of performance under the sun with hundreds of artists.
Anytime there's something fun happening on the streets, it's a good time to get out.
But if art was more your style, there was art you could look at and there was art you could create at. Artwork not your thing? Well, there was plenty of music, psychedelic light shows, food trucks, and even, it seems, some psychiatric help available. Of course, everyone has a favorite. We have to give it to the flame swallowers and those playing with flame hula hoops. And oh my, this guy just went up in flames. But he did have a very thick flame retardant suit on. We think he was all right. All in all, a fiery night of first-class entertainment. I'm Anna Marcos for LA This Week.
And next year, for the 10th anniversary of the Bringing Back Broadway initiative, the party promises to be the biggest extravaganza yet. Well, City Council lays the groundwork for hosting the 2024 Olympic Games. A new development near the Beverly Center will soon be taking shape, and the city marks the year of the rooster. All these stories in City Beat. The LA City Council approved the contract it would sign if LA lands the 2024 Summer Olympics, along with a final list of venues for events and a plan to use both the Memorial Coliseum and the planned NFL Stadium in Inglewood for the opening and closing ceremonies. LA 2024 has proposed a privately financed, balanced budget of $5.3 billion for the Games, although LA must cover any budget shortfalls according to the contract. Part of the budget plan is to only use existing venues like the Coliseum and Staples Center and not build any new permanent buildings just for the Games, and to capitalize on the billions of transportation improvements the city already has planned. Paris and Budapest are also in the running to host the Games. The council also approved a 145-unit residential complex to be built near the Beverly Center by the Grove developer Rick Caruso. The project was okayed after Caruso agreed to reduce the building's height by 55 feet, taking it from 20 stories to 16, representing a compromise with community activists calling for a limit to tall buildings in the neighborhood. The complex will offer 14 units at below-market rents and will also feature a restaurant, market, and plaza. Construction is expected to begin later this year. LA City Council members recognized the 2017 Lunar New Year with a presentation and celebration in council chambers, complete with lion dancers and drums. The Year of the Rooster began on Saturday, January 28th and lasts until February 15th of 2018. People born in the Year of the Rooster are characterized as honest, energetic, intelligent, flexible, and confident.
In light of recent events of what's going on nationwide and worldwide, I think it's more important that we use this opportunity to come together with family, friends, community, and do what we can to get engaged in our communities.
Over at the LA waterfront, hundreds of folks came out to enjoy the third annual Lunar New Year Festival, hosted by the Port of Los Angeles at Crafted. Folks got up close and personal with Chinese culture. The free community event featured traditional dancers, a petting zoo, taiko drummers, face painting, arts and crafts, calligraphy, brush artistry, and a firecracker finale. Well, lots of rooster fun was also had at the Japanese American National Museum as it kicked off its own Chinese New Year celebrations. Anna Marcos takes a look.
Cock-a-doodle-doo, it's the Japanese Year of the Rooster. The Oshogatsu Festival is a family event. Kids of all ages and races have fun chasing roosters or making rooster-like arts and crafts things.
I want to celebrate the Japanese Rooster Year.
Some try their hand at taiko drumming, and you're never too young to start.
Yoisho! Yoisho!
The candy sculpture's another big hit. I mean, who doesn't like to see swirls of all this candy goo suddenly take shape and become a horse or some other edibly sweet animal? All this fun stuff happening at the Japanese American National Museum also has a more serious side to it.
The city comes in to learn about Japanese American culture, but also most importantly, to learn about what the museum is.
And then there are the time after time capsules, created by this artist, Sebastian Yatsuda. They look like giant plastic pillows in the background.
There'll be 20 of these in 20 cities around the world, and people will be putting in, it's a time capsule, they're time capsules, so they'll be depositing cherished memories.
I came here for the arts and crafts and to put something in that capsule so I could come back in 18 years and find out what I was doing back then.
All in all, an auspicious beginning, and by the sounds of it, a brand new day, or maybe a brand new year, or maybe it's just rooster feeding time. I'm Anna Marcos for LA This Week.
And of course, you can visit the Japanese American National Museum and all its historic exhibits anytime. For more information, visit janm.org. Well, lace up your running shoes for the annual Chinatown Firecracker Run. If you love grapefruits, here's your chance to pick your own. And it's tea time with your favorite fairies. All this in this week's Things to Do. It's the Year of the Rooster. The LA Chinatown Firecracker Run's annual event brings family and friends to participate in the festivities. The run includes bike rides, a 5K and 10K run walk, and a kiddie run. The event will also include a lighting of the fireworks ceremony, admission into the Firecracker Festival, carnival games, and petting zoo for kiddie run participants. All proceeds and donations go to local elementary schools and nonprofit community organizations, providing service and programs to benefit the community. It all takes place February 11th and 12th in Chinatown Central Plaza. For more information, visit firecracker10k.org. Enjoy a day outside and pick grapefruits with your friends and family during the Orchid Ranch annual fruit picking event. White grapefruit can be picked by hand. Bring your own grocery bags or medium-sized boxes. The historic Orchid residence is surrounded by 24 acres of gardens and a citrus orchard. The gardens include heritage oak trees, wandering garden paths, formal flower beds, and a variety of interesting specimen trees, exotic shrubs, and flowering plants. There are several significant oak trees on the property. One of the largest is more than 33 feet in circumference and is estimated to be more than 700 years old. So get your hand-picked grapefruit on February 11th and 12th at Orchid Ranch. For more, visit laparks.org. Come join a fairy tea party. Each table will be hosted by one of a fairy hunt's charming fairies. English tea sandwiches, shortbreads, fairy fruit and veggies, and fairy tea will be served, catered by amazing fairy caterer. Come dressed in your fairy or princess finest attire. There'll be plenty of fun things to do, including circle time, story time with the fairies, music, dancing, and surprises. It all takes place on February 12th at 11:30 a.m. at the Tarzana Community Center. For more, visit afairyhunt.com. And that's a look at some things to do. Well, that's going to do it for this edition. I'm Yana Kane from all of us here at LA This Week. Thanks for joining us. A reminder that you can catch us online at lacityview.org. You can also follow and like us on Facebook. We'll see you back here next week for more of LA This Week.
If you're in an accident, just stay. Call 911. Help if you can. You might save someone's life. Obey the rules of the road.
Good morning and welcome to the Los Angeles City Council. Today is February 8th on Wednesday, and I would please ask the clerk to call the roll.
Blumenfield, Bonner, Buscaino, Sodillo, Englander, Harris, Dawson, Weezer, Carrasco, Corcoran, Martinez, O'Farrell, Price, Rue, Wesson. 10 members present and a quorum, Mr. President.
Thank you very much. First order of business, please.
Approval of the minutes.
All right. Mr. Bonin moves. Mr. Buscaino seconds. Next items, please.
Commendatory resolutions for approval.
Ms. Martinez moves. Mr. Kokorian seconds. Next items, please.
Mr. President, item 1 is an item noticed for public hearing. We do have cards on that matter.
All right, then we'll go ahead and hold that on the desk. Excuse me for 1 second. If we hear the animal sounds again, if you want to make sounds, we're going to ask you to leave. That'll be your only warning, Mr. Herman, today. So just letting you know. Thank you so much. Yeah, we heard it. So thank you. Okay, next items, please.
Items 2 through 21 are items for which public hearings have been held. Committee reports for items 17 and 20 have been posted and circulated and are now before council for consideration.
Okay, colleagues, those are before us. Mr. Huizar.
Special, please, 19.
All right, we'll hold that on the desk. Any others, colleagues? Seeing none, we'll go ahead and open the roll on the balance of those items. Close the roll and tabulate the vote.
10 ayes.
Those are approved. Next items, please.
And Mr. President, those ordinances will go over 1 week for a second read unless reconsidered later today with 12 members.
Great. Thank you very much. And we'll go ahead and reconsider if we have 12. Thank you. Next items, please.
Items 22 through 29 are items for which public hearings have not been held. 10 votes are required for consideration.
Okay, then those are being considered. Mr. Kokorian.
I apologize, Mr. President, but item number 21 required a motion, so if I could ask that that be reconsidered for purposes of making a motion.
Okay, as soon as we come back to that, we'll do that. So right now before us is for consideration is 20 through 29 for items not held. So we'll open the roll so we can put those up on the board. Close the roll and tabulate the vote.
10 ayes.
Now we'll go ahead and take item 21 for reconsideration. Open the roll for reconsideration on 21.
Oh, good. Thank you.
Close the roll and tabulate the vote.
10 ayes.
Let's go ahead and take item 21.
Thank you very much, Mr. President. I'd like to move that the Council adopt 21B, the Budget and Finance Committee report, as amended, to strike recommendations 1 and 2 in that they are duplicative of recommendation 3C.
All right, and we'll go ahead and then open the roll on that. Close the roll and tabulate the vote.
9 ayes, 1 no.
All right, thank you very much. That clears, passes. Next items, please.
Mr. President, that brings us to items 22 through 29. There are items for which public hearings have not been held. 10 votes are required for consideration.
We already took the vote for consideration on those. So
then those items are now before you, sir.
Okay, then, and we have cards on all of them?
All items, sir.
All items. I've figured as much. All right, so we'll go ahead and hold those on the desk for cards. Next items, please.
Items 30 through 33 are items scheduled for closed session. Would you like to hold them on the desk?
Mr. Kokorian?
Thank you very much, Mr. President. Items 30, 31, and 32. Budget and Finance recommends approval of the City Attorney's recommendations, and those can be considered in open session unless members have questions or concerns. Item 33 should be considered in closed session.
Okay. Colleagues, then we can take that as a group from 30 through 32. Seeing no other questions on the board for those, we'll go ahead and open the roll on those items.
Pardon me, sir, if I may. For item 30, in the case entitled the Tiara Group 2 et al. Versus City of Los Angeles, there is a recommendation to approve the Budget and Finance Committee recommendations. For item 31, in the case entitled Misty Wilkes versus City of Los Angeles, there is a recommendation to expend $150,000 in settlement. And for item 32, in the case entitled Ronald Ray Smith versus Ricardo Arua et al., there is a recommendation to expend $150,000 in settlement.
All righty, so we'll go ahead and open the roll on those items. Close the roll and tabulate the vote.
10 ayes.
Those are approved. Thank you very much. Next items, please.
Mr. President, that takes council back to presentations.
Fantastic.
Items called special or general public comment.
We'll go ahead and take presentations. If I can ask Councilwoman Martinez to please come up and take the chair for a moment.
Good morning, Mr. Englander. Mr.
Yes.
Blumenfield, whenever you're ready, sir.
Thank you very much, Madam President. Colleagues, you know, often we gather and recognize our true community heroes. And often in these chambers, they turn out to be firefighters and police officers. But who are the heroes of the heroes? Who are the ones that stand out and go above and beyond the call of duty, not just as an officer, but as a friend of the community, as a friend to all. And we have a remarkable story to share with you, both council members here, myself and Councilmember Blumenfield, about one particular LAPD senior lead officer, Duke Dow, a true community hero. There's story after story about what Duke does every day. In fact, I think his social media gathering and following can only be followed by and is in competition with maybe Joe Buscaino. It's just remarkable. He's out there going way beyond and above. And I just wanted to share one story with you that happened recently. This is one of many stories. We had a homeless individual who was 60 years old and became homeless after the death of his mother over a year ago. He was his mother's caretaker, Bill Davey. After she passed away, he was given 3 days to move out of his home. He was currently then living in his car and forced to relocate out of the shopping center where they were parked. Complaints about him and his makeshift tent taking up multiple parking spaces. We all know and hear those same complaints often. But that's where the story begins, not ends. Duke responded. Officer Dow brought in LA Housing, the Hope team, and he provided Mr. Davey with emergency housing. But that wasn't enough. Davey was excited, but he was nervous to drive and bring his car over to the shelter and to the housing because his car was all he had, and it had expired plates. It wasn't even registered in his name. It was registered in his mother's name, who just passed away. And he knew if he got behind the wheel, his luck would be of such that some other officer, somebody else, would pull him over and impound the vehicle, and he would lose the only thing he had left. So he explained all this to Duke. So Officer Dow, what did he do? He himself, on his own, went to the Department of Motor Vehicles. That in and of itself, for all of you who have ever been to the Department of Motor Vehicles, right there deserves a medal. He went and he found out how much Davey owed on his registration and what was needed for the title to be transferred, knowing full well that the mother was no longer there to sign for it. And he spearheaded then a fundraising campaign. He brought in no other than Fern White, who's also here, a West Hills, Woodland Hills Crime Stoppers expert and leader. She immediately deployed her social media expertise, and together, both of them helped organize an entire online GoFundMe campaign. And less than 48 hours, they raised the $1,146 from the community to have Davey's DMV fees paid, his smog check, an oil change, gas for his car, a hot meal, hotel, everything to get him moved and took care of him. In fact, roll the story here. There's a quick story we want to show you.
Okay, yeah. Just put the pink slip in my name?
Yeah, this is to pink slip in your name and to get it registered.
Yeah.
And guess what? Well, because of that, you know how it's help you, right?
Yeah.
I was able to raise enough money.
Yeah, oh my God.
So I'll
you, in 2 days, you just... You're going to election the president.
It's all right, man.
How the heck? It's all right. It's all right. Where did you hide those rings on your back? I'm telling you, dude, you're an angel. My God. You got it. You clicked
Yeah, but now I just need the money to be transferred so I can go to DMV to get the registration.
Because I'm going to go to
in order to do that, I have to make sure that
Okay. You didn't. Okay,
Yeah.
that's just put the pink slip in my name?
Yeah, this is to print the pink slip in your name and to get it registered.
Yeah.
And guess what? Well, because of that, you know how it's help you, right?
Yeah.
I was able to.
These are often, this is what he does all the time. And it's constant, every day. Often the stories we don't hear about our Los Angeles police officers, that we have a lot of very special ones, but I'll tell you right now, we've got Duke, and he is just remarkable in everything he does every day. I'd like to now turn it over to Councilmember Bob Blumenfield to say a few words as well.
Great. Thank you, Mitch. Thank you for bringing this forward. One of the extraordinary things about today and about Duke Dow is that the story you heard for Duke is not so extraordinary. It's another day for Duke. He is literally out there as a hero every day making things happen in the community, and we are so blessed to have you as a senior lead officer. And it wasn't always that way. As Corinne knows, she is the president of the Canoga Park Neighborhood Council in my district and does an amazing job. But a couple of years ago, 3 years ago, we didn't have a permanent SLO. We had a number of temporary SLOs, and the community was really getting frustrated. Canoga Park is a very underserved area, and it has a lot of challenges. And we really needed a SLO who would understand the community. And Corinne and I, we talked about it. I was talking with the captains about it. And then basically Duke came into our lives as to be that permanent SLO. And he was not only the right choice, he was of and by and from the community. Canoga Park High School, Pierce College. When he's out there, and we've talked about this before, and he runs into somebody in the community, a kid who's maybe on a wayward path and you know, says, oh, you don't understand. He's able to say, yeah, I understand. I went to Canoga Park High School. I know these areas. And he's able to bring that genuineness to it and keeping it real with folks. He can make things happen, and he changes lives every day. And he's got a heart of gold and a social media account that is amazing. I urge you all to follow it because it's just great stories each day about how he's making a difference in the community. And then he teams up with folks like Fern, who's with Crime Stoppers, who is out there organizing the community. And then for things like this, it becomes a dynamic duo of our SLO working with the community, making it happen, creating a GoFundMe account when it needs be for specific items. I mean, you've said before to me, it's like, well, if we just had a little bit of money for this, we could turn this person's life around. And you see the world that way every day, and we are just so fortunate to have you representing our city in uniform, representing LAPD, and making our communities better. So thank you. Thank you, thank you, thank you for all you do, all you continue to do, and know that we support you, not just your council members here that you know, but all of the council members and the city, because you are a shining example of what a senior lead officer should be and could be. You are something for folks to inspire to be like, and we are just thrilled. So thank you again, Duke and Fern.
Mr. Englander?
Thank you. And the reason
we have one member on the queue that is dying to say something.
Fantastic. Okay, go ahead.
Okay,
yes.
I'm sorry. Mr. Buscaino.
Thank you, Madam President. I, too, want to rise and recognize the work that our senior lead officer has done. To Mr. Englander and Mr. Blumenfield, thank you so much for recognizing Duke and his efforts. You know, the senior lead officer, we have a little over 200 of senior leads throughout the city of Los Angeles. You know, they are truly the problem solvers, focused on prevention, problem solving, and creating partnerships in the city. And you brought all the resources needed for this individual who needed some guidance, You brought in some community-based organizations, community leaders, and you showed your heart behind the badge. And this is not only what senior lead officers do on a daily basis, but the department as a whole. So I do want to, the senior lead, we're kind of a fraternity, sorority in itself. And I do want to recognize you, Duke, and thank you for the work that you continue to do as a senior, as a SLO in your area. Thank you. And to our colleagues, to recognize Duke's effort, we really appreciate you bringing him here and honoring his efforts. And as you know, homelessness is a big issue in our city of Los Angeles, and this council and the mayor has really prioritized solving homelessness, and this is, we're not giving up on these individuals. And, these are the stories that we need to celebrate and highlight and honor, and we're doing that with you, Duke. God bless you. Thank you.
Council members, good morning. Council member Blumenfield and Englander, thank you so much for taking the time and the opportunity to recognize our senior lead officer, Duke Dow, as we could hear from all the stories after stories after stories, the good work that they do. We know that senior lead officers are the tip of the spears for community policing, and at a time where community policing is at the center of police discussion, more than ever, it's important to highlight these success stories. And for that, we're very grateful. So on behalf of the community that you serve, Senior Lead Officer Duke Dow, I want to thank you very much, and also to Fern, community member, who have stepped up and showed and displayed that partnership between the police and the community. So thank you very much, and it's a very special day today.
Thank you very much. And now, before I turn it over to Officer Dow to say a few words, I wanted to let you know also that since he works out at Topanga, we get to share him in CD12 and CD3, and we're both blessed, very blessed to have not only him, but some phenomenal senior leads. And we were talking about it just yesterday before the presentation. I was telling some community folks that we had him coming in, and we started talking about a bigger discussion about homelessness, and they said, how do you get your arms around it? How do you help all of these individuals? And this is how you do it. It's helping one person at a time. It's having leaders like Officer Dow that step up and go above and beyond. Folks in all of our offices, community-based organizations, neighborhood councils, everybody working together to help each individual. And it's stories like this that we need to cherish, we need to share, we need to get out there so everybody knows that you can make a difference. And if you make a difference, it makes a dent and it solves the problem. So really, truly appreciate all his work and a leading example for all of us. So turn it over to you.
Well, thank you very much. I'm not very good to stand in front of a podium and talk about myself, so thank you for the recognition. I grew up in Canoga Park, and now I patrol where I grew up, so it's very rewarding, it's very nice, and especially you have a community support. It's amazing. So once again, thank you very much for the recognition. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Let's give him a big round of applause. Thank you, officer.
We'll go to the media room. All right. Thank you very much. Also for you. And of course, we'll go to the media room to present these.
Take my word now.
Okay, Mr. Weezer, are you ready for item 19?
Yes, sure. Thank you. Thank you very much, Madam President and colleagues. Today is before us is a very important item that will help us
better manage our development in the city of Los Angeles. The instructions from Plum, which we voted on last week, mark a critical step toward community planning reform. And now more than ever, we are in need of a streamlined, strengthened process for long-range community planning in the city's 35 community plans across the city. We have heard over and over how we are not updating our community plans, and that has resulted in us not keeping up with the needs, with the growth in our neighborhoods. And the problem we have right now is they don't get updated often enough. We have only updated 4 of the city's 35 community plans in the last 10 years. Let me repeat that. We have only updated 4 out of the city's 35 community plans in the last 10 years, and 3 of those were in 2016 alone. Currently, the city has guidelines, but they don't have requirements. Though we have guidelines as to how often we should update our community plans, nothing has required us, and oftentimes we don't do them because of the lack of funding in our general fund. As many of you know, we've gone through some very tight times with our budget, and our planning department has suffered quite a bit of it and hasn't had the necessary resources to update these community plans. So today, among other things, we're going to require that our community plans get updated every 6 years. And we're going to do that by creating an ordinance that makes it mandatory for the City of Los Angeles to update the community plans every 6 years. Our 35 community plans serve as the blueprint for establishing and implementing the shared vision for the future of our neighborhoods, and we must expedite updating them in a balanced fashion that will continue to address the city's demand for more jobs, housing, and infrastructure improvements. The fact of the matter is that our city will have to manage that growth. There will always be growth, and we have to figure out where we're putting that growth, what type of growth are we allowing in what parts of the city. But if we don't have the basic elements of our community plans, we really don't know where we are headed. The other benefit of updating our community plans is that it will result in fewer general plan amendments and less zone changes. If we're working off a community plan that is 17 years old, zone changes are going to occur more because what was good for a community 17 years ago isn't necessarily good for it now, and given the chance, a particular community would create new guidelines for their area. We've heard many times over and over the number of GPAs, general plan amendments, and zone changes we're doing, but that is because we're trying to manage that growth, but we don't have our plans, and we're looking for exemptions all the time. It seems like the exemptions has swallowed up the rule in our community plans. I want to thank Council Members Cedillo, Ryu, Blumenfield, O'Farrell, Bonin, and Krikorian, and in conjunction with Mayor Garcetti, who in last April we introduced a motion to get the wheels moving on this. Building on that work, the Council voted to staff up the Planning Department's community planning program with 35 new positions in this year's budget, which is very good news. And today, after vetting this item several times in Plum, the Planning Department has provided a solid basis for the city to move forward with a clear set of instructions that are not only feasible, but ready for immediate implementation. So what are we going to do? First, we're going to require community plans to be updated on an accelerated 6-year update cycle. Planning has instructions to come back with a draft ordinance to codify this requirement. Planning and CEO have further instructions for a report back on the necessary budget resources, staffing needs, and funding analysis to implement this faster and an updated timeline. We anticipate this will cost an additional $10 million. $5 million will come from the general fund, as the mayor has committed each year, and we also have a potential fee assessment for some general plan amendments when they are applied for. Secondly, we are going to require that all future project-specific GPAs be processed in batches on a semi-annual basis so that the city and communities can consider multiple development projects in a neighborhood and their potential impacts more comprehensively. So in other words, when we get GPAs, we will process them area by area on a geographic basis so that we see the cumulative impacts of those GPAs in those neighborhoods. And lastly, we're going to require that all future EIRs associated with development projects be prepared only by city-approved consultants who have gone through the city's rigorous screening and procurement processes. Currently, Developers get to pick the consultant of their choice who work on their EIR. That will end with this action. We instruct planning to issue an RFP to establish a pre-qualified list of environmental consultants. I'd like to thank Planning Director Vince Bortoni, our Deputy Director Kevin Keller, and all the planning staff for their amazing work. We in Plum certainly asked them to do a lot in little time, and we appreciate all the hard work they have done on this. And there's been a lot of talk about our reaction to a proposal in March, and this actually has been in the works for a few months. But we have expedited this because we know how important this is for us to ensure that we continue to provide neighborhoods with a sense of rules that we all know exist and we could all abide by to continue to control the growth that will happen in our neighborhoods. So, colleagues, ask for your aye vote on this. Thank you.
Okay, and we've got Councilmember Bonin on the queue.
Thank you, Mr. President. And Mr. Huizar, thank you and amen for this. This is not just a good thing to do, this is an essential thing to do. Yeah, I've been saying since I joined this body that we had a broken planning system and that the lack of updated community plans was central to that, is that because of the lack of updated community plans, we had essentially a culture of speculation. That's certainly what I see in my district, where people buy a piece of property with the hopes that it will be built as something other than the way it is zoned. And that creates a phenomenon of competing investments. I've got people who put their life savings into the homes they own, and that is the most important investment they've made in their life. And that investment inevitably goes into competition with someone who has bought a piece of property for speculation purposes, as is so often happening in many parts of my district. And that breeds and festers a series of battles for the souls of our neighborhoods. And it's unhealthy, and it results in bad planning. And it breeds mistrust and a lack of faith in the system and in us. And again, we have heard over the past few years, the 2020 Commission came before us, and Mr. Buettner and others said we need to update the community plans. I mean, everybody from our neighborhoods to our civic leadership has said we need to do this. And I am so glad for your leadership and to see us moving forward on this and to have it codified and to make sure it happens every 6 years. We absolutely need to be planning for the growth of the city. Our population is getting larger. We're an exciting city with a vibrant, growing economy, and people are moving here. And people who have children here want their children to be able to afford to stay here and live here. And because of our affordable housing crisis, they can't. And because people can't afford to live here, but they're still working here, our greenhouse gas emissions are getting worse, and our traffic is getting worse, and is causing our city to crumble. And this is one way to get things back, by having community plans that are updated, that are stuck to, so that everybody has certainty and that our approach is honest and direct. And this is a damn good thing to do. I'm glad to co-sponsor this with you, and I'm thrilled to be moving this forward today. Thank you.
Mr. Cedillo.
Mr. Bonin, that was very eloquent, this battle for the souls of our neighborhood. Mr. Huizar, thank you for your leadership on this and your leadership at Plum. My observation is that this is probably central to the local issues that our city is confronting. That we have plans that are out of date, and as a result, as a matter of law, people make amendments to those plans because those plans simply don't serve us. A plan is an idea that you have for your future. But in the execution of those plans, they're outdated, so it's impossible to execute a plan you had 20 years ago. All of us had our own business plans 20 years ago, and then we find ourselves sitting here. It wasn't exactly what we planned. And in all those circumstances, we are confronted with that, which engenders what Mike Bonin eloquently called the battle for the souls of our neighborhood, but what engenders apprehension, which engenders frustration, which engenders the types of reactions that we see through initiative. We are governing appropriately. We are making decisions appropriately, legally, and making them to the best of our ability based upon the tools in front of us. But this will bring more contemporary tools. This will bring tools that are more timely. This will bring tools that reflect an engagement of our communities. This is exactly what we should be doing. I applaud you for this. The periodic reviews and the more frequency of the reviews will give people greater confidence. The overview, the cumulative reviews, make greater sense. I mean, we should see what's going on next door when we do something. You know, when we do a development and we see that the park has been developed down the street, that makes sense. Then we can evaluate what types of benefits we should acquire for the community. And so that makes great sense. And of course, it will create, as always, as we believe from the public sector, greater confidence from the public that we are doing the EIRs. For some reason, there's an apprehension when the private sector does them. And in this instance, we're creating kind of a hybrid so that the department and the city can provide the appropriate oversight and make sure that those EIRs are done appropriately and done as they should be. All those three things will do so much more for development in the city and for the appropriate development of this city than any of the other initiatives that have come before us. It's not a one-size-fits-all. It's not an overreaching response, but it's a response that's authentic to the neighborhoods and one in which, to finally quote one last time, will help us make sure that we win the souls of our neighborhood. Thank you. Thank you for your leadership.
Thank you. Councilmember Rue.
Thank you, Mr. President. And this is a long time coming, and I really thank you for your leadership, Councilmember Huizar, and for you to even find the time to tackle this on, because I don't think you've had a plum meeting that did not last at least 4 or 5 hours, and that's being very conservative, because I know some meetings you and the other fellow plum members, Councilmember Cedillo, Marquise Harris Dawson, Curran Price, and Council President Englander, I think you've had meetings till 10 p.m. at certain times. So I don't know how you found the time to do this. This is something that's very important, as all the other council members have eloquently stated. This, more than anything, I don't want to repeat what they said, but this will, more than anything, help restore trust between City Hall and our neighborhoods. So thank you for your leadership on this, and the rest of the council members.
Thank you. Councilmember Bonnet.
Thanks. I just wanted to add one thing. Something that I think that we should also pursue that bolsters this, and this looks forward to our next budget discussion, is having a more robust enforcement division in our planning department. The County of Los Angeles, by contrast, has a very robust enforcement unit in their planning department. It's about 1/3 of their planning department. Whereas here, most of our enforcement is left to building and safety inspectors, who aren't as fluent in what the planning code calls for. And it creates a lot of problems, and it's one of the things that I think would be important for us as we build faith in our planning and development process here in Los Angeles and in ourselves, is to be able to actually enforce what the planning decisions are, and I think that means more for an enforcement mechanism in planning.
All right, thank you very much. I want to add something to this conversation. There's a lot of conversation out there, and there's a lot of dialogue, particularly given Measure S out there, saying it's all based on community plans. The community plans are the cure-all, fix-all, most transparent method that if they were simply updated, we would fix everything. I can't tell you how false that is. Just yesterday, in Plum was a great example of that. We are the proud recipients in CD12, the most current and newest approved community plan in the city of Los Angeles with Granada Hills and Knollwood. 8 years it took. We had over 50 public hearings. 50 public hearings to vet it. What came through on the community plan was a great community plan. A lot of stakeholders and everyone supported it. And then, a developer came in, purchased a piece of property. It's been all over the news. And this relates to updating the community plans and unintended consequences, perhaps, as well. And so with that, what happened was they proposed on this particular site, it was downzoned, by the way, in the community plan. The original zone would have allowed over 800 units. The new zone, under the new community plan, allowed 440 or so units. So the developer came in and bought the site and put in an application for 440 units. By right. Would have been allowed under this new community plan. And the community went ballistic. We had hundreds of people yesterday in Van Nuys at an ministerial hearing over this, over a new community plan that was approved. It didn't need a zone change, didn't need a variance, didn't need any new conditions, so the newest plan in the city, and they came unglued. And for good reason. Nobody expected that this was going to be done at this site. So a lot of people are out there saying, this is what we need to do, and we need to expedite them, and it'll fix everything. And the reality is, the real fix is community participation. The real fix is having neighborhood councils involved in the process. And I started looking at the history with this body and who sits around this horseshoe, and looking across the board, I did a deep analysis that virtually every single developer and application, whether it's a zone change or a variance or something outside of a community plan or specific plan, goes to the neighborhood councils, and almost across the board, the council ends up supporting what the neighborhood wanted or didn't want. So I just wanted to throw that out there. We needed to update these. There's no question. But it's always not just what it appears. It's not the end-all, be-all, cure-all. And so with that, I too ask for your aye vote. So let's go ahead and open the roll, close the roll, and tabulate the vote.
12 ayes.
Great. Thank you very much. Appreciate that. I did have a special shout-out as well for the Beijing Etown Academy, but I think they just walked out. So if they come back in, we'll make sure we recognize them as well. With that, Mr. Clerk, where does that take us?
Mr. President, would you like to reconsider the ordinances at this point?
Yes, we've got 12. We'll go ahead and reconsider those.
Those would be items 4, 5, and 6, sir.
Great. Go ahead and open the roll on those items. Close the roll and tabulate the vote.
12 ayes.
Those are approved.
They're
Thank
now
you so
before
much.
you, sir.
Okay, so those are before us?
Yes,
Those
sir.
specials? Okay, we'll go ahead and open the roll, close the roll, and tabulate the vote.
12 ayes.
Great, thank you. Those are approved. Next items, please.
Mr. President, that leaves items 1 or 22 through 29.
Let's go ahead and go into multiple speaking items. Okay, so we'll start off first with Mr. Herman. Okay, you've got item 1, 22, 20, well, 20 through to 29. So please stick to the items.
I will attempt and do my best with my ability, sir. Thank you. So now that we're on item 22, let's pass. Let's go on to item number 28. CD 13, regarding the bitch under the TRO for motion, accepting the funds to partially delay the outcomes of split phasing traffic light. Do you really care about lights? You should care more about the hit and runs throughout the city of Los Angeles. We've become the hit and run capital of the world. So why would I trust you? Like Weezer and Godoy, $185,000. Now item number 29.
Stay on the items. Mr. Herman, hold his time. If you're going to go off on not on the items and talk about any specific members and single them out when you're on specific items, that's going to be your fair and final warning. You're here. No, I'm holding your time. That's going to be your final warning. Otherwise, you're going to forfeit your time. So go ahead and start his clock again.
Mr. Chair, I'm on item 29 now, right?
You're on items 20 through 29.
29, motion by Englander, Joe Blow Busquiano, relative to the Porter Ranch issues of neighborhood programs in Council District 12. Purpose, funds to assist Who? Your local constituents? You didn't do shit about the gas leak. You walked away from Woodland Hills, Englander. You walked away. And what did the people say there? Turn it off.
You're not on the item. That's not the specific item.
That was a plan, sir.
That's going to be your final warning.
Now going on the Ezel Ford issue regarding the city council shall recess at closed session.
You can't speak on that again.
I'm reading it off the agenda, so I'm on topic.
No.
I'm staying on topic, sir.
Hold his time.
That's what you asked me to stay
Stop.
on topic. I'm reading
Stop.
it right off the agenda.
You're forfeiting your time now. I told you what items you spilled out cards for. Now you're disrupting the meeting. You're disrupting the meeting. Okay, can you show him out? Okay, we're going to ask you to leave the meeting. You're disrupting the meeting. Please show him out. Thank you. You can be dismissed for the rest of the meeting. Thank you.
And for the record,
he's still disrupting the meeting. You've been given multiple warnings. You're still disrupting the meeting. Still disrupting the meeting. Thank you, sergeants. If you can please escort him out. I think he needs some help. Thank you very much. He's still standing there just disrupting the meeting. Thank you very much. Still yelling out. All right. Thank you very much. Have a nice day. Thank you. We'll wait for him. He's still disrupting. Sorry, colleagues. He's still disrupting the meeting. Still yelling out. Thank you very much. Thank you. Have a nice day. Thank you. Thank you very much. Still yelling out. All right. Sorry. My apologies to the public who's here waiting for specific items or wishing to speak. Mr. Akala, I'm going to let you know the same thing. Please stay on the items. I'm going to bring you up now for your cards.
And, Mr. President, just for the speakers, please keep in mind that the interpreter has a headset on, and when they shout, it hurts her ears. It would be nice if the volume were kept at a reasonable level.
Great. Thank you very much. And I appreciate that, too. I'll make sure that we enforce that as well. Those are part of the rules, that they don't shout into the microphone, or they'll forfeit all their time as well. So you got to stay on the items. So, Mr. Akala, you have items 1 and just 1. So 1 minute on item 1.
I signed up for the other ones too. Yeah.
You have multiple items. Okay, and the other ones. Okay, you have 1. I'm sorry, let me fix the cards right now. And 22 through 29. So all the items, 1, 22 through 29. Oh, okay. Those are the ones that you can speak on for your 3 minutes.
Yes. On 1, I would like to say that it is extremely unfair and I would say even illegal to put liens on people that have purchased a property. And these poor people here don't even know they're getting a lien on their house and that their house may be sold from under them. 2305 West 23rd Street, a lien for $649. They probably left a banana peel on the sidewalk and somebody fell down. And I assume that's why you gave them the lien for. Then again, I may be assuming too much. Then you got this North Sycamore Terrace, 4935. Lien for $696.36. Who the hell thinks up these liens? 36 cents? Why didn't you just round it up to, you owe us $1 million? Huh? You owe us $1 million because you own a little property. The city of Los Angeles needs money, so we're going to make the money any way we can. Do you realize what you have done by treating people like this? You have elected Donald Trump. And even though you're doing a good job of supposedly fencing him off, look, these liens do not help you on bringing on people that don't like
That's
you.
not on topic. So again, you got to stay on topic.
I am
your
on
final.
topic.
That'll be your final warning on the item specifically agendized, please.
People don't
Thank
like you because of these liens. That's what I'm saying. Am I not saying that? I am on topic. These stupid liens are not good for people. And you keep saying that you're fighting homelessness, and it's not happening because these liens drive people homeless. And when I get my 1 minute of free speech, which you did not allow the previous
And now
speaker.
we are off topic, Mr. President.
I am on topic.
Okay, just go ahead and let's start your 1 minute then for general public comment.
Yeah, that's what I want.
Start as 1 minute.
I want to be able to call you a son of a bitch. City attorney, all you do is pick. You're not on topic, you're not on topic. Fuck you. You're never on topic, motherfucker.
Juan, come on, you know better. Come on.
Well,
General public comment.
Generally speaking,
Not about anything.
that's how I feel about you people.
Okay.
And that's what Donald Trump feels about you people. And I don't support that son of a bitch redneck either. But, he's got you saying Donald Trump is not fair to any of us. Well, you're not fair to the people. You just red zoned a lot of places where people cannot even sleep in their cars anymore. What kind of a son of a bitches that have a place to live tell the other son of a bitches that don't have a place to live?
Thank you very much. Next speaker, please. John Walsh. John, you've got items 1, 26, and 27. Those are the three. 1, 26, and 27.
I also noted 29. John Walsh, blogging at HollywoodHighlands.org or J. Walsh Confidential, tweeting at Hollywood Dems. Number 1, building and safety. Now, I think you're doing a good job on building and safety. I'm not one of these homeless guys. You're all a bunch of crooks. You're all a bunch. That's all those white men. You're doing a good job. I've never had any trouble, and I've lived at the same address since 1976. Then we have 26, and what 26 says. This is rent escrow. Everybody who's come down here to complain about it was told it'll be postponed. Talk to the people over here. Nobody comes back and complains. In other words, everybody that complains initially about rent escrow at this microphone, they're satisfied. They don't come back. Which means anybody gets on the REAP list, come down here, because if you come down here, they're going to get rid of substantially get rid of your fine. And local neighborhood programs in Council District 12. That is Council District of Mitch Englander. I think the FBI should be taking a good look at this. They're also looking at the LAUSD. You can get rid of the extra minute. I don't need it. Remember, I don't talk to the last second. Okay, now I'll go to my 1 minute public comment. Measure S. It is building up. Someone here on the city council said it was the battle for the soul of LA. None of you want to get up there with the mayor. The mayor got up there. He had one black face in his picture. I'm going to talk to the black community. This mayor, this white boy mayor, says vote against Measure S because it will produce, if it passes, you're going to lose black jobs. I live across the street from a construction site at Capitol Records. I have seen either one or two black faces there in 2 years. I don't know if the black face I saw there last year is the same black person as it was this year, but twice. And as far as women is concerned, I have never seen a woman at a construction site in this city. Have you?
Great, thank you. Let's go ahead and start your 1 minute for general public comment. That was your 1 minute. I'm sorry. Never mind. We got it. Okay.
My
Thank you.
1 minute.
We already did your minute. I'm sorry. I apologize. We
my
included
1
it.
minute.
No, John, you're done. John.
Okay.
John, you're done. We already had your 1 minute. I apologize. Thank you very much. So the next speaker then, Eric Previn. Eric Previn for item 1, and then of course 22, 28, and 29. Those 3 items only is what we've got. Item 1, 22, 28, and 29.
It is Eric Previn from the 2nd District, Studio City, and I am running for the office of Mayor of Los Angeles. Item 22 is Mr. Weezar's got a little lighting district. Second consideration, it was originally heard on February 1. The problem is that there are multiple other items on the same thing feeding into the street lighting maintenance account. But this is an account that who controls, and then does that money then go into the general fund per a late night move over on the bulletin board? That is our concern. We finally are seeing some dollars, $2,500 assessment here, $2,500 assessment there against Angelenos. Mr. Cedillo today, who spoke about how he feels he's governing appropriately, has a lien in CD1 on his constituent, and Mr. Wesson is also brave enough, after the outcry about this appalling conduct, to have one in his district as well. That's Herb J. Wesson, the council president, the real council president. Item number, I believe it's 29, is Mr. Englander is moving around $6,400 into a CD12 account, hopefully to reward the kinds of officers of the law like Mr. Dowd, who he cited today at the presentation that was deeply moving about how they found a guy who was living in his car and helped him out with the police garage, who provides a tow and an impoundment for lots of Angelenos on a regular basis. You just changed the law, all of you, to put what Carol Sobel has said, people who would be allowed to put themselves on the street and sleep into their cars, but you're preventing them from being in their cars and moving them around. And we understand that people don't want cars in front of their homes, but you have done, once again, something that is going to result in big problems from Carol Sobel. It is unfortunate, and in my neighborhood, they are sending around the maps, eagerly ready to get some motorhomes out of town and move them along and get people who are just, there are 7,000 Angelenos living in cars, guys. It's horrible. It's your fault. It's your fault. I would say then, because since I'm now approaching the other minute, I have, I believe it was item 4 and 5 are in your district, sir. You're taking some small lot properties and putting 2 units with 2 cars. So that's going to result in about 100 cars that Mr. Bonin and DOT are trying to
I
work
don't think the
against all
speakers
over
on
the
the
place.
items.
And yet in
You're
your
not.
district-
You're not. Again, you got to stick to the items, Eric,
I am
as you
speaking
well
to
know.
the items. I'm sorry, I was speaking to the items. And I do have a general public comment coming for 1 minute after this. But in terms of the other items that are on the agenda, I'd like to speak about item number 19, sir. That certainly is on the agenda. And as
No,
you know,
but you don't have a card in for that,
I do
and
have a card
that's
in
already
for item 19.
satisfied public comment.
Oh, perhaps it has been satisfied, but I do have a card in. Okay, you've been
You can't speak on it. I
Well,
told you which
agree.
items. I specifically, and I'll tell you again, you filled out a card for 1, 22, 28, and 29, as I read 3 times as you were coming up, and told you again when you got to the podium. Those are the items
28
to
is
stay
like
on.
the Grammys or something, right? Isn't that what you put down? Sir, I signed up for some other items that you ignore regularly, and that's your strategy. It doesn't work very well, though.
Okay, your time's
Yeah, it's a
up. You go ahead and start your 1
$13,000
minute for general public
contribution.
comment. You have 1
Okay,
minute.
fine. I will go to my final general public comment, which is we heard some interesting things about item 19, how it's a vibrant city that's booming, Bonin said, and then he also said, but it's crumbling. And he also said that we're going to finally adjust these community plans, and Mr. Cedillo was deeply moved by the reference to our cities, or our villa, what was it? It was some, our communities are in battle with one another or something like that. And then at the end, after everybody else commented, he came back to say, and let's not forget about enforcement. which is what you are all about, unfortunately. And Vision Zero is being unmasked. And Mayor Garcetti does not believe in the rule of law, despite our efforts to get him to comply with the California Public Record Act through the appropriate channels, through lawyers. Mr. Cedillo likes to chew gum, that's fine, but this group is completely abhorrent in their willingness to pretend that they are inviting the community to participate in these meetings, when in fact you're putting up the most kind of draconian roadblocks that could ever be conceived by a group of individuals who've been elected by the constituents. In fact, you're currently denied. You just hit the button quietly. Well done, sir.
Time is up. Thank you very much. Okay, Mr. Spindler, you have items 1 and then 22 through 29 as well. So those are the items. Stay on the items only. I've already said it to multiple speakers, so I don't have to warn you a third time. That'll be your only warning. Stay on those items, please. Thank you very much.
Fucking number, fucking 1. Fucking hearing, fucking protest, fucking appeals or fucking objections to building and fucking safety department terrorist report and terrorist confirmation of terrorist lien for terrorism nuisance abatement costs and non-terrorist compliance of terrorist code violations and terrorist annual inspections. The acts of terrorism continue on item 1. Homeland Security terrorism on item 1. Yes, that's true. Now more bullshit. Let's turn the pages on 22. Spring and 8th. You want lights? I've got lights. You don't want them? Too fucking bad. Pay me, bitch. April 19th. These poor people are going to be taxed for shit that you're supposed to do. More terrorism. Homeland Security. More terrorism on item 22. Item 23 is the same terrorism as 22 by the terrorist city council. Vote no, but they'll vote yes. And then 24 continues. The same lighting terrorism by the terrorist city council. And then 25 on Los Liones Drive. Yes, the name of the lion. Can you hear the bitch roar for more taxes on lighting? More terrorism on 25. 26, Mr. Walsh says you do a good job, so we don't have to go, wah, 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 wah. No, we like good things. Thank you to these landlords. 28 continues more terrorism against homeowners. Again, more terrorism. And then 29, why the fuck are we giving Mitchell Englander any money for neighborhoods? You piece of shit. The only thing you do for your neighborhood is flush it down the toilet. This nice lady from Canoga Park, she understands, even though you think you help the neighborhood. You don't help the neighborhood. You help people get digital signs in your neighborhood, like last night at Plum, you fucking turncoat. Porter Ranch is in your neighborhood, but you're letting people be gassed. You know.
You're not on the item. So let's go ahead and start as 1 minute for general public comment. Thank you.
Gas. Yes. Now we get to our good friends Tritobia Ford and Edsel Ford, the late Ezel Ford, murdered by police department, will get money today on item 33, I believe. So you've been fucking with us since August the 11th. And Mr. Krikorian, shout out, has finally come today to pay. Why do people that are colored have to pay and wait in pain and wait in pain? Because you kill anyone black in a redevelopment zone. Anyone who's black gets murdered unless they leave. You know it, Mr. Price. You know it, Marchese. The only one who's black who doesn't know is the one that's not here today. because he switched sides and became white. Long live Ezell Ford. Fuck you for killing him.
All right, thank you very much. Next speaker, please. Leah?
Hi.
So just 1 minute for general public comment. Then.
No, I also commented on the
And item
one.
And item 1, I'm sorry.
Item 1, right. Okay. So I would like to talk to you about item 1, which is the building and safety liens. I would like to bring to your attention how discriminatory they are and that you are issuing for 4 years. I've sat here about other problems and I've listened to all these low-income people or people who don't have right access to government lawyers or any kind of lawyer, and they're being discriminated against. Like here today, you have two. One that they put in an illegal kitchen and another one that's got a car. But here's a guy over in Pacific Palisades Coastal Bluffs that's violating every law that there is, causing the destruction of the coastal bluff, and you don't go after his order to comply. So why does one man, who, by the way, owns a big oil company, who's all friends with CD11s, and they're all the same, expediters, that they don't have to comply with the law or the order to comply? But here, I sit here, 25 people, one after another, have to comply. So either have the order to comply or don't have the order to comply. But don't tell the wealthy that they don't have to comply.
Great, thank you very much. Now you have one minute for general public comment.
Okay.
And ma'am, can you shut your light off on your phone, please?
Oh, sure.
You can tape if you'd like, but just the
Yeah,
light
of
needs to come off.
Just give me a second to turn
Thank you.
that off,
Appreciate
and then
that.
I will do that.
There you go. It's
Hold
off.
on,
Thank you.
I don't want to make people go on. Wait a second. Let me turn it off. It's not off. Oh well.
It's off right now. Yeah, that's perfect. Thank
It
you.
is?
Go,
Okay.
Go ahead and start your 1 minute. Thank you.
All right. My name is Leah. About 4 years ago, I learned that government persons in the city of Los Angeles had an unlawful policy of disregarding and violating the law. I was told to stay quiet by city employees, and that if I didn't stay quiet, they would come after me. I did not stay quiet, and since then, those public and private persons have gone to extraordinary lengths to discredit me and cause me prejudice. For more than 4 years, I have been living in terror, quietly, while I try to figure out how things could be so bad. And if so, if they were really that bad, how could that be happening in 21st century Los Angeles? I became even more terrified when I learned that City of LA officials disregarded the written safety, health, and zoning laws. I'm asking you to please enforce and uphold the written law because I'm so afraid, more afraid than how I feel every day. I'm more afraid of what the future brings if you don't create a fair system of justice in the city of Los Angeles today. Thank you very much.
Okay, thank you very much. Brian Barajas? Brian still here? Yes, there you are. General public comment.
I turned in a leaflet, LaRouche PAC. British pull out the stops to destroy Trump. Sober world promotes U.S., Russia, China cooperation for a new paradigm. I think in this the process is, I think, it's just to emphasize again and again, is that the emphasis should be and has been the Glass-Steagall Act. It has been reintroduced as H.R. 790. Regardless what you think about Trump, whatever he wants to do, it is up to the citizens to write the policies into act. And that is what is the policy, Glass-Steagall. But the other emphasis I want to point out is the power to collaborate with other countries, Russia and China. That has always been the power to pursue when you're human.
Great, thank you very much. Jason Cooper.
This comment is for Mr. Huizar. After countless attempts to speak with you directly, your staff have done everything to prevent me from meeting with you. I am now forced to make this comment publicly. There is a major problem that exists across the entire downtown area that you have not worked towards finding a solution for, and that problem is the lack of public restrooms. To say that there is insufficient funds for the construction of new restrooms and maintenance is unacceptable. There is no excuse considering the economic, construction, and population growth. Various city employees, including one of your staff members, told me that you have not incorporated or even considered public restrooms in the Bring Back Broadway and Pershing Square renewal projects. Most businesses in the downtown area make clear that public restrooms are not available, and those that do are for customers only. Free and easily accessible restrooms are few and far between. This problem is unacceptable and disrespectful to everybody. Los Angeles, especially the downtown area, will never be a world-class city as long as this problem continues. Thank you.
All right, thank you very much. And our final speaker, Oscar Mohammed. Oscar, you still here? No longer here. Okay, we'll go ahead and file that away. So that concludes all the speakers. We're going to go ahead and recess, or actually go into closed session. So if we can go ahead and go into closed session. Let's go ahead and vote. Before we do that, we'll go ahead and vote on the open items now.
And Mr. President, before you would be items 1 and 22 through 29.
Right. Okay, so colleagues, that's what's before us. So we'll go ahead and open the roll on those items. Close the roll and tabulate the vote.
12 ayes.
Okay, those are approved. Now we'll go ahead and go into closed session. So go ahead and roll into closed session, please. And if we can secure council chambers, we'll do closed session in here. And sergeants, if you can please ask and help everybody out of chambers and let us know when it's secure. Thank you so much. All right, we are back in open session. I'd like to turn the item over to our city attorney.
Thank you. So before us is the final and complete settlement of Ford v. City in the amount of $1.5 million.
All right, well, let's go ahead and open the roll. Close the roll. Tabulate the vote.
10 ayes, 2 noes.
All right, thank you very much. The city attorney?
Yes. For the approved settlement, Ford v. City, the council found that the settlement is in the best interest of the city, and the city intends to make an inter-fund borrowing or advance from the reserve fund to pay the settlements on an interim basis, which loan or advance will be refunded or reimbursed with the proceeds of judgment obligation bond issue. A resolution regarding such intent was separately considered and adopted. Any issuance of judgment obligation bonds would require future council approval, public comment, and would be considered by council at a later date.
Great, thank you very much. Okay, so I believe that matter is already concluded. Then that clears the desk?
Yes, sir. Council has motions for posting and referral.
We'll go ahead and post and refer those. And now we're on to announcements, colleagues. Ms. Martinez, you have an announcement?
Thank you, Mr. President. I would like to take the opportunity to read Coretta Scott King's letter on the nomination of Jefferson Braingard Sessions for the United States District Court of Southern District of Alabama to the Senate Judiciary Committee Thursday, March 13, 1986. Dear Chairman and members of the committee, thank you for allowing me this opportunity to express my strong opposition to the nomination of Jefferson Sessions for a federal district judgeship for the Southern District of Alabama. My longstanding commitment, which I share with my husband, Martin, to protect and enhance the rights of Black Americans, rights which include equal access to the democratic process, compels me to testify today. Civil rights leaders, including my husband and Albert Turner, have fought long and hard to achieve free and unfiltered access to the ballot box. Mr. Sessions has used his awesome power of his office to chill the free exercise of the vote by Black citizens in the district he now seeks to serve as federal judge. This simply cannot be allowed to happen. Mr. Sessions' conduct as U.S. Attorney, from his politically motivating voting fraud prosecutions to his indifference towards criminal violations of civil rights law, indicates that he lacks the temperament, fairness, and judgment to be a federal judge. The Voting Rights Act was and still is vitally important for the future of democracy in the United States. I was privileged to join Martin and many others during the Selma to Montgomery March for voting rights in 1965. Martin was particularly impressed by the determination to get the franchise of blacks in Selma and neighboring Perry County. As he wrote, certainly no community in history of the Negro struggle has responded with enthusiasm of Selma and her neighboring town of Marion, where Birmingham depended largely upon students and unemployed adults to participate in nonviolent protests for the denial of their franchise. Selma was involved fully 10% of the Negro population in active demonstrations, and at least half the Negro population of Marion was arrested on one day. Martin was referring, of course, to a group that included the defendants sternly prosecuted for assisting elderly and illiterate blacks to exercise that franchise. In fact, Martin anticipated from the depth of their commitment 20 years ago that a united political organization will remain in Perry County long after the other marchers had left. This organization, the Perry County Civic League, started by Mr. Turner, Mr. Hogue, and others, as Martin predicted, continued to direct the drive for votes and other rights. In the years since the Voting Rights Act was passed, Black Americans in Marion, Selma, and elsewhere have made important strides in their struggle to participate actively in their electoral process. The number of blacks registered to vote in key southern states has doubled since 1965. This would have not been possible without the Voting Rights Act. However, blacks still fell short of having equal participation in the electoral process, particularly in the South. Efforts continue to be made to deny blacks access to the polls, even where blacks constitute the majority of the voters. It has been a long uphill struggle to keep alive the vital legislation that protects the most fundamental right to vote. A person who has exhibited so much hostility to the enforcement of those laws and thus to the exercise of those rights by black people should not be elevated to the federal bench. The irony of Mr. Sessions' nomination is that if confirmed, he will be given life tenure for doing with a federal prosecution what the local sheriffs accomplished 20 years ago with clubs and cattle prods. 20 years ago, when we marched from Selma to Montgomery, the fear of voting was real. As the broken bones and bloody heads in Selma and Marion bore witness. As my husband wrote at the time, it was just a sick imagination that conjured up the vision of public officials sworn to uphold the law, who forced the inhumane march upon hundreds of Negro children, who ordered Reverend James Bevel to be chained to his sickbed, who clubbed a Negro woman registrant, and who callously inflicted repeated brutalities and indignations upon non-violent Negro peaceful petitioning for their constitutional right to vote. Free exercise for voting rights is so fundamental to American democracy that we cannot tolerate any form of infringement upon those rights. Of all the groups who have been disenfranchised in our nation's history, none have struggled longer and suffered more than the attempt to win the vote than black citizens. No group has had access to the ballot box denied and persistently, intentionally denied than black people. Over the past century, a broad array of schemes have been used in an attempt to block the black vote. The range of techniques deployed with the purpose of repressing black voting rights run the gamut, from the straightforward application of brutality against black citizens who try to vote to such legalized frauds as grandfather clause, exclusions, and rigged literacy tests. The actions taken by Mr. Sessions in regard to the 1984 voting fraud prosecutions represents just one more technique used to intimidate black voters, thus deny them this most precious franchise. The investigation into the absentee voting process was conducted only in black belt counties where blacks had finally achieved political power in local government. Whites had been using absentee process to their advantage for years without incident. Then when blacks realized its strength, began to use it with success, criminal investigations were begun. In these investigations, Mr. Sessions, the U.S. Attorney, exhibited an eagerness to bring trial and convict 3 leaders of the Perry County Civic League, including Albert Turner, despite evidence clearly demonstrating their innocence of wrongful doing. Furthermore, initiating the case, Mr. Sessions ignored allegations of similar behavior by whites, chooses instead to chill the exercise of the franchise by blacks by his misguided investigation. In fact, Mr. Sessions sought to punish older black civil rights activists, advisors, and colleagues of my husband who had been key figures in the civil rights movement in the 1960s. These were persons who, realizing the potential of their absentee vote among blacks, had learned to use the process within the bounds of legality and had taught others to do the same. The only sin they committed was being too successful in gaining votes. The scope and character of the investigation conducted by Mr. Sessions also warranted grave concern. Witnesses were selectively chosen in accordance with the favorability of their testimony in the government's case. Also, the prosecution illegally withheld from the defense critical statements made by witnesses. Witnesses who did testify were pressured and intimidated into submitting the correct testimony. Many elderly blacks were visited multiple times by the FBI, who had hauled them over 100 miles by bus to a grand jury in Mobile, when they could have easily had testified at a grand jury 20 miles away from Selma. These voters and others have announced that they are now never going to vote again. I urge you to consider carefully Mr. Sessions' conduct in these matters. Such a review, I believe, raised serious questions about his commitment to the protection of the voting rights of all American citizens, and consequently his fair and unbiased judgment regarding his fundamental right. When the circumstances and the facts surrounding the indictments of Al Turner, his wife Evelyn, and Spencer Hogue are analyzed, it becomes clear that the motivation were political, and the results frightening. The wide-scale show of the exercise of the ballot for blacks who suffered so much to receive the right in the first place. Therefore, it is my strongly held belief that the appointment of Jefferson Sessions to the federal bench would irreparably damage the work my husband, Al Turner, and countless others who risked their lives and freedom over the past 20 years to ensure equal protection in our democratic process. The exercise of the franchise is an essential means by which citizens ensure that those who are governing will be responsible. My husband called it the #1 civil right. The denial of access to the ballot ultimately results in the denial of other fundamental rights. For it is only when the poor and disenfranchised are empowered that they are able to participate actively in solutions of their own problems. We still have a long way to go before we can have minorities no longer need to be concerned about discrimination at the polls. Blacks, Hispanics, Native Americans, Asian Americans are grossly underrepresented at every level of government in America. If we are going to make our timeless dream of justice through democracy a reality, we must take every possible step to ensure that the spirit and intent of the Voting Rights Act of 1965 and the Fifth Amendment of the Constitution is honored. The federal courts hold a unique position in our constitutional system, ensuring that minorities and other citizens without political power have a forum in which to vindicate their rights. Because this unique role, it is essential that people selected to the federal judges respect the basic tenets of our legal system, respect for individual rights, and a commitment to equal justice for all. The integrity of the courts, and thus the rights they protect, can only be maintained if citizens feel confident that those selected as federal judges will be able to judge with fairness of others holding different views. I do not believe Mr. Jefferson Sessions possesses the prerequisite judgment, competence, sensitivity to the rights garnered by the federal civil rights laws to qualify for appointment to the federal district court. Based on his records, I believe his confirmation would have a devastating effect on not only the judicial system in Alabama, but also on the progress we have made everywhere towards fully fulfilling my husband's dream that he envisioned over 20 years ago. I therefore urge the Senate Judiciary Committee to deny his confirmation. Thank you for allowing me to share my views. Members, Senator Warren was denied the right to read this letter yesterday on the Senate floor, and I sincerely appreciate your attention. This needed to be read into the record, and for Senator Warren and for all of us who believe in civil rights for all, I appreciate your attention. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Mr. O'Farrell.
Here, Ms. Martinez. Thank you for reading that letter. We were all denied that privilege, and she was denied her right. And we're facing an unprecedented dynamic coming out of the Trump White House, and we have to resist every step of the way and be vocal at the local and the most local level, and we have an obligation to that, so thank you. Mr. President, I'm rising to recognize a good friend of mine and a colleague, and that is Mr. Tony Vasquez from the City of Santa Monica, a City Council member, Vasquez, and former mayor of the City of Santa Monica. Welcome, Tony.
Welcome.
Good to see you here.
Thank you. Thank you, colleagues. Excuse me, Wayne, you're disrupting the meeting if you're going to make noises and yell out. So, colleagues, do we have any other announcements? Seeing none, do we have any adjourning motions? Looking to my left. Seeing none, to my right. Yes? All right, if we can please have everybody please rise in council for adjourning motions, please rise. Mr. Kokorian.
President, members, I'd ask that we adjourn this meeting in memory of Terry Anderson, who many of you might have known. Terry was a proud resident of the Valley Glen community and a dedicated community activist. He had more than a decade of service to the Greater Valley Glen Neighborhood Council since it was begun. He was not only one of the council's founding board members, but he completed 4 terms as president. He had previously served as Los Angeles Deputy County Counsel and Assistant City Attorney for the cities of Santa Monica as well as Pasadena. He was a very strong supporter, especially of our public safety officers, and he started a lot of traditions in the Valley Glen area, including the firefighters' pancake breakfast, and the community safety fair, which had become a mainstay of the community since then. Many of you might have known Terry because he was an active leader in the Irish American community and was one of the leaders of our St. Patrick's Day celebration here. He spearheaded the Irish Fair Foundation and its many programs, and he was a very involved parishioner at the St. Charles Borromeo Church in Toluca Lake. His dedication to the Valley Glen community will be missed, and I know that you'll all join me in hoping that Terry Anderson rests in peace and may peace be on his family as well. If I may, Mr. President, I'd also, members, I'd like to ask that we adjourn in memory of Mike Connors, one of CBS's greatest stars of the 1960s. Probably only Mr. Cedillo will join me in remembering Mike Connors and the show that he was best known for, Mannix. Okay, well, thank you, Mr. O'Farrell. Mike Connors was, many of you may not know that Mike Connors, despite his anglicized name, was Armenian American, and so was the character Mannix. And for a kid growing up when there weren't a lot of Armenians around in California at that time, to see a guy playing an Armenian character as a tough guy on TV was pretty important for me. He was also a great basketball star at UCLA. Not many people remember that part of his career, but he was known as Touch. He played under John Wooden and was quite the star after returning from his service in World War II with the United States Army Air Corps. Mannix was kind of a landmark tough guy detective show. It was known for its violence. Mike Connors, or Joe Mannix, I should say, the character in the show, was knocked unconscious 55 times over the course of the series. He was shot more than a dozen times, but he always got up and he always got his man. So the show was also important, by the way, because his co-star in the show was one of the first African-American women to have a significant role in a network television show. So the show was kind of a landmark in that way as well. Mike Connors is survived by his wife, Mary Lou, with whom he was married for 67 years, his daughter, Dana, and a granddaughter, Cooper. He left a great legacy as part of television history of the golden age of TV and CBS in the 60s and 70s. He was a very important part of the Armenian American community as well, and I'd ask that we adjourn this meeting in his memory.
Thank you. Seeing no other adjourning motions, that concludes the council agenda. We are officially adjourned. Thank you so much. Be safe.